Hello and welcome back to another Amazon advertising Q&A segment. Super pumped to join you guys. Honestly, this is one of my favorite days of the week. So for those of you joining us for the first time, hey, my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'm one of basically the co-founder of Amazon Ad Agency, which is why I'm even qualified to talk about Amazon advertising, because it is something I have been knee deep and in the weeds on for over 5 years at this point, which means I got a whole lot of backstory and a whole lot of potential answers to your Amazon ad questions. So again, if this is your first time joining, hey, hi, thanks for joining in the segment. So this segment is not going to be possible without any of you basically typing your Amazon ad questions in the chat. So wherever you are on any social media, be that LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, feel free to type your Amazon ad questions into the chat and we will make sure that we get those answered. So we book about an hour for these segments. Typically we have about enough questions rolling in to go for the whole segment. Now this is a brand new time zone. I'm on, we're doing this about 3 hours later than we normally do, which means we're going to see how many people show up today to this session. So depending on how many questions we get in the chat box, that is going to determine basically how long the session is going to run. So we often get questions all the way from like variations are typically a common one. Questions about product launches or anything else that falls into the scope of Amazon advertising. Again, feel free to use that chat box. I will be able to get it on my end and I will put your answers or your questions up on the screen. And we'll get to answer these in real time, which is super awesome. And if you do ask a question and I give you an answer and you have sort of a follow-up comment to that, you can also feel free to use the comment box sort of to give any follow-up context or follow-up questions to your original questions. So we'll get through as many of these as we can today, which again, if you are joining in, really appreciate the join. And one thing I wanted to share, so if you're ever trying to keep up with past lives, or if you want to type a question and have it answered, if you're unable to join these live, but you still have questions and you would like to get an answer to them, we actually have a way that you can do that. So I'm going to pull up our screen. So this is our website. Which it looks like the Amazon Q&A. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can get rid of that banner and show you guys where to find it. There we go, get rid of the banner. Up here, there is a new resources and there's this Q&A. So if you ever want to, there's a few ways that you can use us. We're trying to make this super available because we're really leaning into this new year to make sure that we're giving back to the community as absolutely much as possible. So what we're going to be doing is every single week, we're going to be updating this to the link where you can watch the upcoming lives on YouTube. So if I clicked on this link, it's going to take me to YouTube, which is going to be the live that you are watching right now. And there's a couple other ways. So we're actually going to display the calendar so you can look at all of our upcoming lives. And actually, if you click this little plus button, you will be able to follow this Google Calendar if you wanted to get updates there. And actually inside of these, I actually didn't. All right, so you can pop it open. We'll actually show you like where you can watch these. So all of the links get updated when the new lives are created to show you the platforms that you can watch them on. So if you want to follow them on any of your usual social channels, you can do that. But here's the thing that I'm really stoked about. So if you wanted to submit a question, and again, you're not able to attend these live, maybe you catch the replays, maybe you've seen some of the clips of our answers. We're putting out a lot of the answers as shorts on YouTube. So feel free to check out our YouTube channel as well. If you go to our YouTube channel and check shorts, we have a lot of shorts, and a lot of these are answers to previous questions from people who are tuning in. So there's a wealth of knowledge to be had here. But again, you can feel free to use this to, again, use this form to ask any questions. And then if you want to put your email in this box, you also could be put on our subscriber list, which we are putting out information. We're putting out knowledge on our on our email subscriptions that we're not actually publishing anywhere else. So there's some really good stuff being shared in those emails. Highly recommend you do that. But either way, and there's also links to playlists if you want to catch all our past lives, or if we're putting out just specific answers, then you can submit there. So we want to make it super easy for anyone who wants to ask a question. Again, be that live, which again, we really appreciate you showing up. Or if you wanted to get get an answer to a question that's been asked previously, you absolutely can do that. And it's now fully available on our website. We're trying to make that a little bit more easy to access for those of you who, I mean, I understand everybody's working, or you may not be able to join the live. So really stoked for this. And yeah, I appreciate everyone. One of the things that's definitely been top of mind for us going into sort of this, not like off season, but we're definitely well past Q4. Hopefully everyone had an amazing Q4, an amazing holiday season. But one of the things that happens is that after all of the good conversion rates, after all of, really the peak and everyone optimizing their advertising for, that peak shopper time, things are very much winding down these days. And unless you have sort of a new year, new me product, now sales should have equalized at some point. However, they're obviously not going to hit peak Q4 numbers. So you definitely want to make sure that you are adjusting your ads accordingly to those, sort of to your spend, because total A cost is, of course, total ad spend divided by total sales. So as total sales decrease, naturally, just due to consumer behavior, not necessarily anything that you're doing incorrectly, you want to make sure that you are adjusting your ad spend accordingly. And one of the things that we are doing rapidly in all of our accounts to sort of, and again, account for these fluctuations in sales, to keep on top and making sure that we are actively managing our budgets is, of course, campaign budgets have been a huge focus of ours and will continue to be a huge focus of ours in 2024. So making sure that our budgets are aligned with campaign performance. That's one thing that, we're doing a lot of. And again, we'll continue to do that because we've gotten some really good results in our total A cost numbers for clients doing it that way. However, another thing that you're going to want to do consistently and frequently to help adjust for the total A cost trends is you want to make sure, this is often referred to as cutting bleeders, or I think that's where most people cutting ad waste, cutting, or when you say cutting, I mean decreasing bids on things with clicks with no sales. And oftentimes it's like a general optimization. Now, if you're using a bid optimization platform, then most likely the platform is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. However, one thing that we've noted, it depends on the look back windows. So one thing we don't use any external bid optimization tools. We have our own internal tools, but one thing that you want to be aware of in any tool, be it a software or be it your own internal system, is often you have your very normal look back windows. Like you might be looking at the past 14 days. Some optimization features will look at, how many clicks are happening, or maybe the past 30 days. One thing that you want to be aware of now we're 4 days into the new year, and we're also again, well past most of our accounts. I think we saw the dip around, some of them was on the 20th. It was depending on shipment times, but definitely around the 22nd, 23rd, definitely the 24th and 25th is, pretty much everything going down across all accounts. And So the one thing you want to be aware of is as you optimize your bids, to make sure that you're not allowing for good Q4 peak shopper sales and conversions to sort of skew your view of what's happening right now in the account. So the one thing that you should be doing is looking at shorter time ranges for your bid optimization sequences, and making sure that you're adjusting your bids based on the current performance, not again performance pre-Christmas or anything like that. So how you would do that is you would look again shorter time frames. You pretty much if you go inside of your campaign manager, you can go inside of your business reports, and you basically want to take a look at those graphs to note where there was that drop off, like at what point and what date did you see the drop off of performance, and then that is your date you want to be adjusting. So you don't want to look pre sales drop dates when you're making your bid optimization. So that's something that's going to be super, super important. Now, going back to sort of your bleeders or cutting bids with no sales, we're actually doing this on a daily basis. Now, a lot of times people want to be careful. There is such a thing as over optimizing. So most times, super frequent adjustments don't always make sense in general sort of like usual optimization cycles, right? But the one thing that you do want to be very aware of is that things change very quickly, and you want to make sure that you're catching that. So what we'll do, a targeting tab is great for this, even just manual adjustments. So if you're using a bid optimization software, you do want to check to make sure that, if you're doing things inside of Campaign Manager, does that conflict with your bid optimization software? Certain softwares will only allow you to adjust through the software. So that's something that you want to be aware of. However, one of the things that we will do, again, if you're able to, we use book files for our optimizations. That's really good to catch things at scale because that also is going to include the sponsored brand ads. Targeting tab does not include sponsored brand ads. So you just want to be aware of that. But you can go into the targeting tab and again, sort or filter your date ranges for whatever is, again, post sales drop. And then you want to be looking, filtering for things with 0 orders, sorting by clicks, potentially sorting by spend, and going through and making sure that you are frequently optimizing your bids for things with clicks with no sales. Because oftentimes what happens this time of year is that there's a lot of things that made sales inside of, peak season. And as soon as that consumer behavior shifts, as soon as conversion rates take a hit, then those things that were previously converting are not going to be converting right now. And so you want to make sure that you're catching that. So the goal most times is to make sure that you are optimizing for the current performance. And in the case of total ACoS rising due to sales changes, again, you want to make sure that you're adjusting your ad spend based on those sales changes, because if you keep spending as much as you did peak Q4 and the sales are no longer there, you're going to end up with wild unprofitability in accounts, which is not great. So the two things that are the biggest things to check ongoing and frequently is going to be, again, clicks with no sale keywords and search terms. Search terms are a huge thing because, again, there was a lot of search terms that worked very, very well peak season. And as, again, we move into this time of, just not as frenzied of shopper behaviors, you are going to see the search terms that, again, used to work, and so you might not have caught those and added them as negatives. You want to go through and be checking. Again, search term tab is great for this. My favorite workflow, if I wanted to do spot checks, and you definitely can download a search term report, look across, again, you download the search report, look and see when those sales drops happen in your account, select from that point onwards till now, and then generate a search term report. And then again, you're going through and looking for clicks with no sales, and you want to make sure that that is added into your ad accounts as a negative, so you can be keeping up with. Again, the goal is to lower ad spend. The best place to lower ad spend is on the things that are not generating sales for you. So I would heavily recommend doing that. And so, yeah, for anyone tuning in, I appreciate the watch. This format is an Ask Me Anything Amazon advertising segment. So if you have any Amazon ad questions, make sure that you are typing those into the chat, and we will make sure to get those questions answered for you. And yeah, so talking about that, my favorite way of spot checking for search terms. This is a really great workflow and one that I've used countless times. It also involves the targeting tab. So if you go into your targeting tab, you're not sorting for anything with 0 orders. Again, I'm looking at the point of change of sales in the account. I'm going to be sorting the targeting tab by what has the highest amount of spend, and then I'm going to look at the match types for that high spend. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for things that have high spend that have multiple search terms triggered for them. So basically everything except for exact match and exact ASIN targeting is the things that I'm looking for. So I want to find things that have the highest amount of ad spend on them. And then what I also want to look at is the performance of those. So the ACoS of those particular targets. Now, if I'm noting a particular target that is a broader targeting type, so broad match categories, auto campaigns are a huge one for this, potentially phrase match as well. What I would do is I would click into the ad group. So that, really nice, actually, there's a blue, the ad groups are blue. You can click on those and be taken directly to the ad group. My favorite workflow to this is to right click and then open a new tab, just so I can keep the original targeting tab kind of the way it was. And then I can, perform this multiple times, but I'm looking into that ad group. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to the target or the search term tab within the ad group, right? So I'm looking at which ad group contains the highest spend in broader targeting types. And then I'm spot checking the search term tab. So again, I'm going to go in the search term tab and to make sure I'm looking at whatever date range I'm seeing the decrease in performance in terms of sales. And then I'm sorting those targets by highest to lowest in terms of spend, potentially clicks as well. And what this is going to do is it's going to help you narrow in on the places in the account where you most likely have search terms that are causing poor performance. And this workflow is going to probably bring up quite a few negatives that are going to make sense to add into the account. Oftentimes, it's really easy to add these as negatives from the search term tabs. And I'm trying to remember if it's auto campaigns that there's not an automatic option for it, but a lot of times there's a checkbox and you can simply say add it as a negative. I would recommend negative exact keywords for this. And then that's a great way to clear waste in the account. And yeah, that is one of the things that I would definitely recommend checking. Cool. Looks like we got a awesome comment from Don. He said, thank you so much for asking it. Thank you so much for the question, Don. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. And this is a really, really good question. So thank you for hosting this. You're very welcome. I appreciate it. If we wanted to ensure my ad agency is providing me the best service, what would I look for? That's a really good question. I mean, one of the things is, and I probably hesitate to say this as an ad agency, but I know clients have done this, is just kind of take a look. We offer free ad audits. Yeah, you're going to have to hop on a call with us before, but if you wanted someone to take a look at an the account, we had clients just do periodic checks of us. Now, full caveat, of course, anyone who's giving you a free audit is probably trying to look to turn you onto the service. So you definitely want to make sure it's somebody you trust, who you know is not going to badmouth your previous agency. But really what I would take a look at is transparency and how will you feel that they understand your goals, and then just KPIs, right? So what does the potential sales growth look like in my account? The standard KPIs would be, of course, the ACoS, total ACoS, and another one that we call ad sale percentage, which is your ad sales divided by your total sales. It just essentially says like, hey, what percentage of my total sales is coming from ads, right? So it's really saying like how happy are you with your KPIs? But beyond that, I would say how well is your agency able to shift based on your particular goals is very, very telling. Um, and um, how well or how open are they to having a good back and forth dialogue on sort of what it is you're looking to do in the account. Example, right? So we'll have clients that have particular goals based on the product line. So I would say that like your general overall metric would probably be like account level, right? Like, is my account level totally cost great? Is my overall A cost great? How are my sales trending in terms of like the total? But the other thing that you like more advanced agencies, or I would consider maybe like more better agencies, they're looking at things on a per listing and potentially like per child ASIN and per parent ASIN level. So instead of saying like, oh, total A cost for the entire account is, I don't know, like 10%, right? Do we have particular product lines we can improve on? Is there anything else that we can be focused on? Or, if you were to grow my account, where would you focus? So that would be something, because what you really want to be able to get down to, and this requires you to kind of understand your catalog, which I'm assuming you do. If you're really getting into your catalog, you probably say, okay, I know this product line is very strong, I would like to grow this product line. I have these product lines that I'm not really sure what to do with. They've never really been top sellers for me, but I'm not really sure, like, should I continue them? Should we push them? I really need to do, so something different. So honestly, in a really well-run ad account, your ad strategy should differ by individual product line. And so how well can your agency shift in that? Now, how well they're able to manage something like that is actually going to be dependent on how good your the ad structure is, meaning how they structured the campaigns well, have they structured have they structured the campaigns well? Are they mixing in a bunch of products that are across several different listings into one campaign? Or are they intentionally building out campaigns for each individual parent ASIN or listing? Or are they building out campaigns with single products in them? If an agency is simply dumping all of your product lines into a single campaign, and if they are hesitant to build out multiple campaigns because that complicates to be perfectly frank, like the more campaigns, right, the more things you have to optimize. So there are a lot of brands, if they're self-run, they'll intentionally limit the amount of campaigns that are being run. The only reason to do that is for simplicity and ease of management, but that's not how you're going to get the best performance. We've come into accounts where there's thousands of SKUs, and we've gotten questions from brand owners, and they've been like, "Hey, are you gonna like simplify this?" I'm like, "No, we're building more. We need to build more. We need to get more intentional and more strategic with your ad structure." So I would just, as long as they're being open and transparent with their strategy, if they're being proactive or coming up with ideas for strategy. So for example, we had a call with a client and he was like, hey, for this particular product line, I would really like to grow it. And we're hitting KPIs with it, right? Totally cost is great, but we're right at our KPIs, and our A cost is great. It's like 20%, but it's right at the KPIs. And he's like, hey, how can we grow more? And we're like, well, as long as we're still hitting profitability goals, are you okay with giving us some wiggle room on the total A costs? Because that's going to allow us to be able to grow the account more, because we're going to be able to get a little bit more aggressive with certain targets. But of course, we'll still, work to maintain the same profitability levels. So that was kind of like, hey, like we feel like there's this possibility. We need this wiggle room from you. Is that something you're comfortable with? Yes. The answer could have been no. And then it's like, all right, we'll see what we can do with the current structure. But, we probably won't be able to get as aggressive as you want. Are you able to have those types of conversations with your agency? So, I mean, if you're, the best service is a little bit, best service can be different to everyone. But I would just say it really comes back to goals and are they understanding one thing that we find, I have a whole video of like there's two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of are we focused specifically on sales growth or are we focus more on profitability? And to be honest, those goals can vary based on the different product lines. That's why it's so important, again, have that good structure and be able to say, okay, we can do this with the ads and we can do that with this product line. Again, because we have the structure that can support that. That's why I was saying that if everything's lumped all together just because they're trying to make it easier on themselves, you're not going to be able to get that very granular strategy, again, per product line. So that's what I would recommend. But Dom, I appreciate the question. Sometimes I give kind of long-winded answers, so hopefully that answered. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to type them in the chat. And for anyone else listening in, again, feel free to type your Amazon ad question in the chat and we'll make sure to get it answered. Dom says, that's great insight. Thank you. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, I always appreciate, especially like kind of out of the box questions like that, because sometimes it is hard to understand. Like, I just say, do you have a good relationship? Are they hitting KPIs? That would be, or if you're not hitting KPIs, are they able to give you insights into what might be different? What's going on here? How can we improve? Those type of things. I'm trying to see what other questions have come in through our form. There was a lot of good question. I know I did get a question a little while ago about, are you able to add negative keywords through bulk files? That was a question that came in, I think, through our subscriber email subscriber list. And the answer to that question is yes, you can add negative keywords through bulk files. The structure you need to be able, the one change in the 2.0 format versus the old format is that you actually need to have the ad group ID and the campaign ID to reference in your bulk file upload versus before all you had to do was reference the campaign name and ad group name. And those are of course contained in your search term report. So that made that dynamic a little bit easier to do. But it is entirely possible as long as you are able to get the ad or the ad group and the campaign ID, which is located inside of a bulk file download. So my recommendation would be to download a full bulk file and then go through, find the campaign IDs and the ad group IDs for the search terms you want to add as negative keywords. And then with those data points, you are able to add negative keywords at scale, which could be very helpful to that point I just said earlier about making sure that you're going through your search term reports, finding negative keywords, because right now, again, performance sales wise just isn't what it was peak Q4, which is why it's peak Q4 and why everyone gets super stoked for Q4 and Q4 sales. Although there are some accounts where their Q4 is not as big of a season for them. If you have like a summer season account, then you're probably looking forward to when it starts to get a little bit warmer, if you're selling like beach toys or something like that, which we are actually working to put together a case study, so be on the lookout for that. We have some really cool observations and some strategies that we've developed in advertising highly seasonal products. So for those of you who have products that do really well in, like say Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, especially those sales times where you got like a week or two to hit it right. And then, sales for that peak shopper time kind of go out the window and everything falls flat. You got to hit it really right if you want to maintain your profitability on those campaigns. So sneak peek on that is you don't want to start too soon. If you start too soon, then very likely you could kind of erase all profitability you get during that, like, again, very short snapshot of shopper frenzy. So be on the lookout for that. We're typing it up. I'm hopefully going to get it out by the end of the month, potentially early next month. Dom in with another question. Appreciate it. So I watched your video on catch-all type campaigns. Have you ever tried something like that with low converting keywords that converted in the catch-all? Yes. You definitely can do that. The one problem, so it's going to depend on your product line. The one problem with catch-alls, and why in that video I'm like, don't scale it, don't increase the bids, don't try and get too aggressive here, is because with like a really good campaign structure, right? If I have one product I'm advertising in, then I know that any search terms that convert are that, whatever products I'm advertising in there, which again, a good structure is going to be like only one product or only one products that are on like a singular listing. I know that I can connect those search terms that perform to those particular products. The problem with the catch-alls is that those good converting searches could potentially be on like any of the products that you're advertising in, which in the catch-all is where you put in your entire catalog into that view. And so you could try that. It might get a little bit hairy. And so for anyone watching in the video Dom is referring to, let me see if I can find it. It's this one right here, the catch-all auto campaign that prints money and how not to screw it up. It's pretty much it's like it's an amazing campaign. It works really, really well. I'll give you a pro tip, Dom, something that's worked really, really well. It's a bit like the catch-all auto. So I would use the same optimization principles that I talk about in there, and like, don't scale the bids too high, keep it super low. If you increase bids too significantly, like, you're probably going to see really good performance and you're going to want to increase the bids, but don't. Is if you take your listing, I cannot take credit for this strategy. I forget who I heard it from, but it works really, really well. Go to your listing, scrape your entire listing. If you have access to your backend keywords, all of it, put it into a keyword density tool. So what you're looking to do is get all of the single words that are in your listing. Now you can take out the does and the ands and, like all of those filler words, but you're going to end up with words like cup, baby, blanket, dish, right? Which those probably aren't all in a listing because they're not really related, but you're looking for all those single words, and we call these, I think we call these single word broad campaigns. So you put it into a campaign, you put these all in a broad match, and then you put in the products with the listings that you scraped. And again, same principle, you're going to keep the bids low. Low is relative to your account. Again, same bidding principles that I talk about in the catch-all auto, which is you're probably doing like a 20 cents, 30 cents, something like that. If you're in supplements, low is going to be relative to you, might even be high as 50 or 75 cents. But you're going to keep those low. And again, you're going to run it. You don't want to increase the bids. Now, if you have poor performance on these, definitely decrease the bids. You want to optimize down, but you don't want to optimize up too much. What we do is we call like a bid ceiling, which means we're never going to increase the bids past X. So for us, that might be 35 cents in an account or something like that. And those work very similar to this. So it's kind of a keyword. Again, it catches a whole bunch of stuff. If you see things that you could potentially add as negatives, that are wasting money, definitely do that. But these are there to just run in the background, get you a lot of good, profitable eyes on your product. And oftentimes the performance of these campaigns is really, really good. Now, these campaigns, as far as like how many keywords are going to be in these campaigns, you're going to end up with a lot of keywords. You're probably going to end up with like over 100 keywords. That's fine, because half of these keywords are not even going to get any impressions at all. That's not a problem. Don't be surprised. I don't think you have to like increase the bids to gain impressions or anything. Again, you just want that to run in the background. But that can work very well. And if you wanted, you might potentially, now again, I haven't tested this, so we're going into like theoretical territory here. But if you have search terms that are working well in the catch-all and you want to like take those out, maybe add them as maybe even just a broader target with a low bid, just to see if you can get any more juice out of those search terms, then that might be a good one as well. Dom says, should I add negative keywords I have already built out? I'm assuming you're talking about those broad match campaigns I just described. To be frank, I wouldn't. Unless you had negative keywords that are irrelevant to the product. So for example, like say you are selling a metal cup and you've noticed that a whole bunch of like glassware keywords are showing up in your search terms, and you've like earmarked that as a negative that you preemptively add because you know it's completely irrelevant to the products, then that would be a good negative to add. But I wouldn't preemptively assume that any of the search terms that are relevant that haven't worked in the past might not work in this, because the goal of this particular campaign is going to be just really, really low cost per clicks. And sometimes things haven't worked because you're spending too much on them. You might test it in this campaign type and see if you can get some orders at a lower cost per click, which might be helpful. Again, test it. And if you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff pop up, of course, add it as negatives. Although full disclosure, in our management style, we don't typically like preemptively add a lot of negatives to our campaigns. We prefer to let things run and just make sure that we're keeping on top of it. And bid management is going to help a lot with ad waste as well. Cool. Taking a drink to save more voice here. This is a really good question. What do you do with such an auto campaign that was performing well with some of the performing variations were in stock, but when performing variations go out of stock, then the campaign loses momentum? Yes. It has to do with the different, how the different variations, their conversion rates is really what you're saying. So when one variation is showing up on a key, on the search terms, it's converting really, really well. What's actually going to be really insightful for you, and this is more of an analytics than like a what to do about this question answer, is if so the search term reports will only allow you to pull 65 days back. So if the products have already been out of stock for more than 65 days, then this is not going to work. But if you're able to, my recommendation is going to be, again, like note when the change of performance was, and I would go into that campaign, go into the ad group, go into the search terms tab, and then I would look at what was working when these top variations were in stock. And then what I would look at, what is not working now that those top variations are in stock. Because the thing with auto campaigns is they're targeting a bunch of different search terms. So what's triggering might be one or two things. And you might find that if you look at when there's poor performance, maybe it's a search term that you were really strong on because your past product was a really strong performer. And now that you don't have that strong performer in the campaign, that search term just no longer doesn't make sense right now. So potential optimizations would be, of course, to lower the bids. That's kind of a default if something's not working, which of course lowers visibility. But the other option might be to go in and add some of those, current underperforming search terms as negatives. You're going to want to make a note for yourself somewhere or keep a record of somewhere. So when those other variations go into stock, you probably want to go and in and archive those negatives that you've added, again, because they're just not performing right now. But I would look at, again, just your typical optimizations as far as bid management goes, just to make sure you can keep up their performance that way. But the other thing I would do is definitely look at the search terms and possibly add things as negatives, at least just temporarily if needed, to help with that. But yeah, it really comes down to the difference in the conversion rates of the products. A lot of stuff comes down to the difference in conversion rates, which if you wanted to know how conversion rates affect your account, there's kind of clickbaity, a new way to calculate ACoS. But this video, I think there's actually a download spreadsheet for this that will allow you to just kind of understand if my conversion rate lowers, how does that affect ACoS? Because we were getting a lot of questions and people wondering okay, I know conversion rate affects my ACoS, but how is it affecting my costs? Like, what's that dynamic? That will give you a really good understanding of the impact of conversion rates on a cost. Cool. Super frog, like the username. Question is how to effectively use the rest of search placement bidifier when controlling top of search and product placements modifier indirectly affect rest of search. Anyways, not actually. So the way that placement percentages work is you have your base bid that you enter in with the ad auction. So all the things I'm talking about happen in fractions of a second. It's actually insane the amount of calculations that the Amazon algorithm does. So as soon as a shopper types in a search, as they hit enter and that page loads, it activates a whole crap ton of auctions, right? So you have each individual spot on the search page, right? And your bid on that keyword that is triggering that search term is entered into the auction. So you basically go to an auction and be like, hey, I'm willing to pay this amount for for being in this search page somewhere, right? So Amazon will take that bid. And one of the factors in that equation is, okay, so for top of search placements, right? So the very top of the page, or if they're loading a product page, that increase placement percentage says, okay, if you can get me there, like those particular spots, I'm willing to pay more. I'm willing to pay a little bit more. Now, how much more you're willing to pay is dependent, of course, on the percentage you set on those placement percentages. And you say, okay, I'm willing to pay more. So that's how the top of search and the rest of search. So, or not rest of search, top of search and product pages affects your bids. Now, prior to this update, we weren't unable to adjust for the rest of search. So we just had to have our base bid and then we kind of bump it depending on the other placements. Well, now with the introduction of the rest of search, you now can add that variable to say, okay, I'm willing to pay more for these other spots on the page as well, again, depending on the performance. So what these variables allow you to do, variables being the placement percentages, is you can say, okay, these are the spots that I'm noticing the best performance when I show up in these spots on a search page, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more to win those ad auctions because I know my performance is better when I show up in those spots. Hopefully that makes sense. So the top of search and product placements, they don't actually affect rest of search bids so much. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. And as far as like how to use it and optimize it, I would optimize how you've been optimizing placement percentages before. How we do it is like, oh, I'm noticing that I have better performance in this placement, and so therefore I'm willing to pay a little bit more, again, in terms of a bump in my bidding. The reason why that's kind of helpful versus, say, just increasing your overall bid is if you increase your bid, you're increasing, again, how much you're willing to pay for everything. And then a placement percentage is saying, okay, I don't want to pay more for everything. I'm willing to pay just a little bit more for this spot. So if you're noticing that it makes sense to pay a little bit more for rest of search, that's when you would use that placement modifier. Another great question. This was going off of the one on the auto campaign. For one similar case, I tried to control the bleeding by adjusting the bid, but when performing stock came back in and I adjusted the bid value, the campaign did not perform even then. At a certain set bid. As campaign gains momentum, cost per click starts getting down day by day. If at some place you feel that the campaign needs optimization and you adjust the bid, how is it going to affect the CPC? Yeah. So decreasing the bid is going to affect the cost per click. Your bids in auto campaigns affect a heck of a lot more than if you just have a regular keyword. The reason why is because in auto campaigns, you're triggering a bunch of potential searches, right? And that's why when it comes to like scale, and when I say scaling, typically mean increasing things, right? So increasing your bids on an auto campaign increases your bids across almost infinite number of searches. So you might be doing really good on this one search page, but you're not doing good on this other. And if I increase the bids, I'm increasing the bids for like all of those, both of those search placements. If I'm decreasing the bids, it's possible that I'm doing really well on this one search, and then I'm not doing well on this other search. And so that combined performance is what you're seeing on that, targeting type. But then again, if I decrease it, then I'm decreasing it on everything as well. So most likely that's what happened. Like if you keep decreasing, again, the amount of searches that you're lowering your bids on, and again, it's almost infinite. That's why whenever it comes to broader targeting, one, I'm just not a huge fan of making my account performance super reliant on auto campaigns to continuously work for me to get good performance. That's a really, really sticky situation for you to have your account in. And again, the reason being is because there's so much variables. And if I tweak one thing, I'm tweaking, like, there's so many variables in that tweak. And so what we will often, like, my recommendation if you have auto campaigns is to keep bids low on auto campaigns. Try not to increase them too much, and try and squeeze out performance out of your manual campaigns, because it's going to give you way more control over where you're increasing and decreasing your bids as far as the search page that are being triggered. And so, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I'm not sure if it did. One thing to really make sure you hone in on when it comes to like performance of auto campaigns is what is going on in a search term level. That's the thing that I would focus on. And again, if you're trying to look at things over time, the search term tab is probably the easiest one to spot check that. Another way to do that would be if you downloaded 2 search term reports and you got like one when it had good performance, one when it had poor performance, and then sort of like overlap, carry in the data on a search term level. And so this is the ACoS before, this is the ACoS after, this is the ad spend before and after, this is the cost per click before, after. That's a little bit more legwork, when sometimes it's easier to just go into the search term tab and then just like look across things. So hopefully that was helpful. But I do appreciate the question. It was a really good question. If you have any follow-up questions, make sure you drop them in the chat so I can make sure to, because I want to make sure you got it answered. Cool. And for those of you joining who missed the beginning of me presenting this, so just so you're aware, we have a new resource. So this is on our website, which is junglr.com. It's behind me. But if you go to the resources and you go to the Q&A section, I wanted to make it a little bit more visible as to when we're doing these Q&As, because we're doing these weekly. And for those of you who are unable to join, you have a way to submit a question. So we're always going to be putting the most recent live up here where you can watch it. So this is today's live. But if you scroll down, you'll also see all of, a calendar with all of our upcoming Q&As. If you would like to follow this Google Calendar, I recommend you click this little plus button. It'll actually add add the Google Calendar so you can keep an eye on it. And inside of each of these, when we generate sort of these lives, we're updating them. So this week, next week's is not updated, but you'll have all the links where you can potentially go watch it and whatever social media channel you prefer. And then here is, if you can't join live, feel free to submit a question. So you can ask your question. And if we get any of those through the week, I'll make sure to prioritize getting those answered on our lives. So you can get questions. And if you want to watch past lives or anything, of course, there's resources there as well. So, cool. So Superfrog had another question. Oh, you had another one before this. Let's see. Does increasing budgets also increase impressions even when the keyword bids are low in a single keyword campaign? Example, 50-cent bid and get 1,000 impressions, $50 a day budget, keeping the bid the same. Increasing your budgets can increase your impressions if There are more impressions that you would be eligible for at that bid. So for example, a really easy way to say is like, is your campaign budget running out? If your campaign budget is running out, then definitely increasing the budget is going to increase impressions. Now, if your campaign budget is not running out, you might potentially gain impressions. Most likely the increase in impressions would be marginal to none. If you're not unhappy with the performance of the campaign, I would just test increasing the budget, see if it works. Yeah, because your question was, does increasing the budget to $100 a day increase the impressions? If your budget is eliminating you from potential ad auctions, which would be in the case of like budgets running out, then most definitely increasing the campaign budget is going to help increase the impressions. If the budget's not running out, again, I can see the potential for a marginal increase, but my guess is it's not going to be very much. Although, again, if you're happy with the campaign performance, I would recommend just increasing it and test it. And definitely report back to us. Let me know. Hit me up on LinkedIn or one of my socials. Let me know what happened when you did the test. I'd be super interested to know. Cool. Another question. Manual campaigns are not cost effective, except broad match modifiers. Bulk variation listings does not allow me to go for manual keyword based campaigns. Need your suggestion in this regard. Manual campaigns are not cost effective. Bulk variation listings do not allow me to go for manual. Do you mind clarifying that last one? Are you talking about variation listings? Because if you're talking about variation listings and how to manage that or deal with that, highly recommend you check out this video. So this is advertising for variations. One of the things that we do is we manage ads for a lot of clothing accounts, which, as you can imagine, the amount of variations is redonkulous when it comes to clothing accounts. And there's very specific methodologies that we've developed as far as campaign structure or ad structure. Yeah, so the thing is, yes, more than 100 or more variations per listing. I would recommend checking this out. In fact, I'm going to take this. I'm going to drop it in the comments. I would definitely check out that video. It's going to be super helpful for you. So the one thing that you're going to want to do is identify what is the best performer. Now, it sounds like some of the best performers went out of stock, which is why you're dealing with all this weirdness in the performance, which definitely is a problem. We actually recommend going through and, in the case of clothing, I reference clothing because I think it's one of the most complex categories to deal with, is we will take the top 1 to 2 or 3 bestsellers, depending on how hard it is to keep in stock, and put those into our advertising campaigns for what we call, quote, generic keywords, meaning non-descriptive keywords. So for example, if I was to advertise, if I had a women's shirt and I found a search term of blue women's shirt, that is descriptive because it is specific to one of my variations. I know exactly which one they're looking for. If I just had, like, say, women's shirt, that's not descriptive. So it's a non-descriptive, or what we call like a generic keyword. For those nondescript generic keywords, we would recommend going after advertising the bestsellers, and bestsellers in terms of conversion rate as well as sales. And then for all the descriptive keywords, that's where you want to advertise the specific variations that are applicable to those searches. So in the case of blue women's shirt, if I had a blue women's shirt, I would want to build out a campaign that's very, very specific to that search. I'm only putting my blue women's shirts into that campaign. And that's our structure that we use. So I would recommend that. We've tried that. We've tested that strategy in baby. We've done that in clothing accounts, of course. We've done this in bedding, certain electronics. And every single time we build out those variation specific campaigns, that has worked really, really well for us, very well for us. Typically conversion rates are really good, performance is really good. So if you have a really complicated listing, I would test seeing, is there a subsection of the market that's looking for a very specific one of my 100 variations, and see if you can get some good performance just pushing those ones to the forefront in terms of advertising. So Ben says, thanks. I appreciate the question. I'm really, really happy. Hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, in some categories, it can be a little bit difficult to get the performance up. One other thing is, if you currently are, I don't know what your ad structure looks like, but if you are building out campaigns that have all 100 of your variations inside of those campaigns, we perform regular checks to identify which of our variations are underperforming, meaning it's very similar to like clicks with no sale keywords or clicks with no sale search terms. You want to identify clicks with no sale variations that you have in your campaigns and your ad groups. And then what you can do, because on launch, you have no idea, like if you're like identify best performer, you're like, I have no idea. I have no data. But as you start to run performance or advertising, you will get data. So as soon as you have that data, and it's the very same thing, you're looking for things with clicks and no sales, I would recommend starting to pause those underperforming variations, because that will also improve the performance of your advertising as well. So I don't know what your ad structure looks like, but if you do have all of those 100 variations in there, I would recommend going through and performing that one. So awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, everyone. It looks like we are at time. We had some amazing questions today. Highly appreciate all of you guys showed up, because if it weren't for the questions, we wouldn't be able to do this. So highly recommend you step in next week. So next week we're going to do it at the regular time, 12 p.m. I'm only going to be able to do 30 minutes next week, because I actually have a really cool webinar that I'm going to be doing next Thursday as well, which highly recommend that you show up for that particular one. I'm going to be doing it with IntentWise. That's going to be a really awesome presentation where I will be going through. I'm going to actually show it, and I will drop this link in the comments as well. But one thing in a lot of variation listings or for really, really large catalogs, it's kind of difficult to know where should I be focused on, right? I'm staring down the barrel of this really large catalog. What are my priorities? Where do I focus? How do I improve my account? I know I need to lower total A costs. I know I need to increase sales. What is my direction? We actually have a really awesome custom report that we put together. I'm going to be presenting it next week on the 11th, 11 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST. So highly recommend that you guys show up for that one. I'm going to post that link in the comments as well. And for all of you joining in, again, I really appreciate it. This has been a great one, and I will catch you on the next live. Thanks.